Welcome to this special edition podcast, Forward Focus, the Future of SES. Today we're going to be diving into people, innovation and partnerships, driving one of the most transformational periods in SES's history.
We've had the opportunity to sit down with the exceptional people who are shaping SES's future, from those reimagining satellite technology and multi-orbit constellations to those championing an inclusive and ambitious company culture. This isn't business as usual. It's the story of a company redefining what's possible in space, connectivity and beyond.
Across this series, we're going to be talking to the most amazing SES leaders and partners, including Carmel, Alberto, Laura, Mikkel, Clara and Neel, co-founder of K2 Space. Together, they're going to share how SES is combining world-class innovation with a people-first mindset to shape the next generation of satellite communications as we know it, including how they're going to evolve their supply chain to meet agility and flexibility demand by the new space and the scale for their future of the MEO networks.
So wherever you're tuning in from, settle in and join us as we look forward to the future of SES.
Okay, so here with us today is Neel Kunjur, co-founder and CTO at K2 Space, one of SES's partners in reimagining the future for satellite systems. K2's mission is to push boundaries of what's possible in space infrastructure and enable scalable, adaptable approaches for the next generation of these constellations. In this conversation, we're going to explore how K2's engineering philosophy aligns with SES's ambitions and how innovation accelerates when bold thinking is matched with technical excellence. Neel, pleasure to have you today.
Thanks for having me on board. Excited to chat.
Yeah, really, same here. So, okay, so let's go into it. So, K2 Space vision is to break the sort of historic correlation between mass and cost in satellites. From your perspective, Neel, what does the paradigm shift mean for the broader space industry, and how is K2 making it real?
Yeah, so it's important to understand the world that K2 started in, right? So we came about as a company in a world where there were really only two choices. You could either build small satellites that were low cost that you could produce at a meaningful rate for a constellation, or you could produce singular, very exquisite, high-power satellites that were very, very expensive, took years and sometimes even decades to produce. And you know, just to give you some price ballparks, like a small satellite will be anywhere from $15 to $20 million. A large satellite will be hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so customers like SES were forced to choose between those two extremes, right? Either they could, wait and pay a lot of money for the satellite that had the capability they needed from a throughput and a power perspective, or they could sacrifice their performance and go with smaller spacecraft, but then not quite get the performance needs that they needed for a large scale constellation. And from K2's perspective, we don't think customers should have to choose, right? We think we should be thinking about constellations of high power satellites, constellations of more capable spacecraft. And really what we've done at K2 is break that curve, right? Where, instead of having, just small sats that are low cost and just large sats that are high cost, we think large sats that are low cost is really the new regime that we should be playing in. And K2 has managed to do is build platforms that allow customers like SES to kind of have their cake and eat it too, right? Be able to field these large power systems and be able to really put forward the architectures that make sense from a business perspective to make the unit economics close. And so, customers across the industry are kind of seeing this change, reacting to it, reframing their plans around, no longer being as constrained from a mass or power perspective. And we're really excited to support that.
That's fascinating. Yeah, super cool. I'm fascinated by what you guys are doing. So you've been involved in sort of K2's growth and technical development in these higher power sort of large satellite domains. What's the biggest talent and mindset shifts required for engineers to move from sort of the legacy small sat thinking to these mega sat platforms?
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing is it's fairly easy to iterate on a small satellite architecture, right? It's a small spacecraft. There's relatively low cost. It's relatively easy to build, and so iteration is really important because that's what determines how quickly you can converge on a viable product that's reliable, that meets your performance needs. It's much, much harder to iterate on a larger spacecraft, right? Something as big as what we're building, right? Everything about it is kind of inconvenient from a design perspective. It's got gigantic solar arrays. It's got a ton of tooling required to build it. Even maneuvering it around the factory is a challenge, right? And so the way that you actually are able to do this is by a complete mindset shift when it comes to engineering, right? As satellite designers, we've always been told that the best thing to do is to reduce mass in our designs, right? That's the small sat architecture. Shave every kilogram you can off of the spacecraft and view mass as the primary constraint when you're designing the spacecraft. At K2, and what we challenge engineers who are working with us to do is to start viewing mass as an opportunity. How can you use mass to your advantage? So even though you're scaling up the spacecraft, you're actually thinking about how to make heavier systems that are simpler, easier to produce, faster to produce. And really, we're able to do this because of the launch vehicle market that exists today, right? The cost of mass is just cheaper. And so we think that requires just a complete, 180-degree shift in the way that people think about satellite design. And that's, what the engineers joining K2 are really excited to do is to break all those previous assumptions about how a satellite or a spacecraft should be designed, how it should be produced, using that new mass versus cost philosophy.
Brilliant. And I think like I was talking to SES yesterday and they were saying, look, we want these engineers to come in and make mistakes and learn from that and have the opportunity to sort of grow and sort of evolve in that point of view. So I'm sure it's exactly the same at K2 Space.
Yeah, and I think that iteration is super important. It's one of the most I would say important aspects of the K2 Space and SES partnership is this idea that we no longer need to kind of freeze our architecture, wait 7 to 8 years to deploy, $1 billion set of infrastructure, right? Instead, can we bring the cost down to a point where we can actually now have multiple shots on goal, right? Try something, iterate, improve the technology with each wave, and get to more of an annual deployment cadence rather than a sort of decadal deployment cadence that we've been used to. And that's only possible if you bring the cost down and if you really change the way that you think about engineering at the satellite level, right? Both on the satellite bus, the payload, the entire system, and the network architecture. You really have to ingrain that iterative philosophy full stack.
Fantastic. And so, I mean, as K2 works with partners like SES Satellite, and I know they're super excited on this next generation for MEOs and multi-orbit solutions, how do you see this sort of intersection of your technology and SES's sort of commercial footprint to drive new value?
Yeah, so I think there's a few people in the industry who don't fully appreciate just how innovative SES has been from the very beginning, of the company. From a personal level, I worked at SpaceX for a long time in my career. SES was the first large commercial operator to lean into Falcon 9. They were the first commercial operator to purchase a launch vehicle through a very risky, business at that point, which was SpaceX. And because of that, they were able to reap the benefits of being an early adopter of that launch vehicle platform that's now ubiquitous in our industry. And so another area where they were super innovative is how they thought about orbital regimes, right? Medium Earth orbit. There's no other operator in the world that committed to operating in MEO the way that SES did. And now, they're the only constellation operator in MEO. And that is a really, really unique proposition for K2 because we have a partner that actually has deep experience in a really, really challenging environment. And what K2 brings is we lower the cost barrier to iterating on MEO architectures, right? So while SES definitely had the foresight to think about MEO as being this really, really incredible strategic, orbit from a telecommunications standpoint, they were somewhat hampered in their ability to actually really proliferate the constellations that they wanted in MEO, right? So iterating, towards a sort of, multiple generation constellation in MEO is something that is really important to being able to continually advance the technology that's being deployed in space. And so the K2 technology stack, what we bring is, lower cost systems that allow you to get into MEO, operate in that harsh environment, learn, and again, continuously improve the system over time to really unify SES's pioneering thinking when it comes to operations and the orbits with a really, really advanced satellite technology stack that allows them to really optimize the architecture rather than sort of conceding to the technology that exists.
Yeah. Yep. Excellent. Fascinating. And so, I mean, we just touched on it a little bit earlier, but I mean, fail fast, learn faster is sort of a mantra now in SES's culture. And you sort of touched on it, but how does that apply in a hardware rich, high sort of reliability business like K2, where margins for error are obviously tight?
Yeah. So you really want to have those iterations really be as low cost as possible, right? So there's two things that we're trying to do there. One is, be able to take smaller steps, right, towards the end goal, rather than having a mindset where you're going to deploy the whole constellation at once. can we deploy technology demonstrators, right? So K2 and SES are working together over the next few years to actually deploy multiple spacecraft into the orbital regime that we're going to be operating in long term. And learn from those, right? So that reduces the cost of each iteration. It's no longer, billions of dollars at risk, right? It might be a much, much lower number that you are intentionally putting at risk for the sake of learning, right? The second really important thing is how do you improve the pace of iteration on the ground, right? So I think, there's this concept that the number of iterations that you do determines how reliable your end product will be. So if you only get 2 opportunities to iterate, that'll be a less reliable product than if you had 3 or 4 opportunities to iterate, right? So when we're thinking about the engineering development cycles with SES, both of us are trying to figure out how do we compress the design time, right? So that we can actually, instead of just having 2 iteration cycles, have 3 or 4. And that means that ultimately the product that we end up launching is much, much more reliable because it's been through many more cycles, been tried and failed, and had that experimentation many more times on the ground before we ever even put it in space. Right. So we're still applying that iterative mindset, but this time on the ground instead of in space, so that when we launch something, we're maximizing its chances of succeeding.
Fabulous. Really interesting. Okay, fantastic. So my final sort of question, I mean, you've had a great career. I mean, you've come from SpaceX. You've with your brother, you sort of found K2 Space. Super exciting journey. And for someone listening who would love to maybe be considered joining you or SES, what advice would you give to them about the mindset, team behaviors and values that sort of will help them thrive in a career?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been really interesting as we've developed this partnership with SES has been understanding how similar our engineering cultures actually are. I think there's a very intense engineering culture at both SES and K2, which is really driven by first principles understanding of physics, right? Going back to the basics and really questioning whether the design solutions we're pursuing are the right ones, right? Kind of eschewing the legacy attitudes and throwing aside maybe things that we've done before to instead figure out what is the best thing that we should do now. So, what I would say to people in the industry that are thinking about joining, SES or K2 is, a lot of people there's a ton of talented engineers who are often held back in the environments that they're in, right? Either because of bureaucracy, because they're forced to design hardware that is, fitting within a box of what's been done before. At SES and K2, you can be unleashed, right? So to speak, and you can operate at the maximal pace that you're capable of because we have a clear vision, we have a clear mandate, and we have to get our technology up in space as fast as possible. So we know what we want. And we want to remove as much bureaucracy as possible to really just focus on the first principles engineering that'll allow us to succeed and build the best systems possible.
Yeah, love it. Excellent. Great advice. Thank you for that. Brilliant. Okay, so that's pretty much it from those sort of questions. Now, before you go, I know you're a busy man, but this is more, before we wrap this up, this is more around for our listeners to sort of get to learn a little bit more about you outside of K2 Space. So I hope you don't mind. There's no right or wrong answers. I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 questions. Interested to hear what you have to say. The first one, and this caught a few people out yesterday actually, but can you tell us something about yourself that not many people would know?
That's a good question. So I think it actually plays into SES. It's very interesting. So my the start of my career in space, I was in university and I got an offer to join SpaceX in the fall of 2013. Now I was super excited. And then I got a call from the SpaceX recruiter shortly after saying, we gave you an offer, but it is contingent on the next launch being successful. If the next launch is not successful, this position doesn't exist, right? And this is in the early days of SpaceX where they're trying to kind of get that momentum on the launch side. And do you know who the customer for that launch was, who was flying on that launch? It was SES. Yeah, it was their first launch on Falcon 9, SES 8. And my entire space career was hinging on that launch. And I still remember, watching that launch. You always have an anxiety watching a launch, regardless of whether it's your launch or not. And this one, my entire career on that launch as well. And I'm so grateful to SES and SpaceX as well for having a successful mission on that, because that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm able to work with SES and why we're able to partner together on building new things.
There we go. Yeah, it's come full circle. Fantastic. Great answer. Excellent. Now, I probably already know this. Obviously, you've come from Chicago. You're now in sort of Los Angeles. How do you relax? I mean, where's your happy place? A spot where you can reset and sort of switch off. You probably don't switch off, but anyway, there must be some place that you have in mind.
Yeah. So for me, I would say probably my childhood home in Chicago in the summertime. There's just nothing like the Midwest in the summer. You sit on your porch in the backyard with a nice book, and it's just green, and the clouds are out. So for me, that's definitely my happy place where I go to reset. A few times a year to really reconnect with my roots, and then come back out to LA. And I love LA as well, but definitely LA for me is all about work and socializing and a lot of the sort of fast paced life. And Chicago is where I go to slow down.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I'm going to ask two more if you don't mind. What would you say has been the sort of biggest lesson that you've learned so far in your career?
Yeah, I think the importance as a leader of having the ability to short circuit your entire org structure of your company and find ground truth, right? It's very easy to find ground truth when you're an engineer working on a project. Maybe you're at the sort of lowest level of the technical hierarchy, and you have an innate familiarization with all the details of what you're working on. As a leader, as your company grows, I found you have to be more intentional about that, right? And not letting separation between you and the product of being down on the floor every day with people that are building the product, that are designing it. I knew that was necessary. I think coming into K2, I didn't realize how much effort and conscious effort it would take to do that every day. But it's so important, right? As a leader, I think we're decision makers, and the quality of our decisions is based on the quality of the data input, right? And so to me, that's been a really important lesson learned as we built K2 is no matter how big it gets, I still have to be super familiar with all of the details of what it takes, every little bit going on in the factory, and be working side by side with engineers across the entire hierarchy of the company to make it happen.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Great stuff. One final question. You're in LA, you're in a bar, it's a karaoke bar. What's your go-to song?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm a child of the 90s and the early 2000s. So like many others, I'm a big Blink-182 fan. So I would have to say First Date by Blink-182 is my go-to karaoke song. I know every word of that song by heart. So I could belt that out confidently after maybe one or two beers.
Excellent. All right, we'll have to do another episode and get you to sing that. But great song. Yeah, they're a good band. They really are. Well, Neel, that's pretty much it. So I want to say thank you for sort of shedding a light on how K2 Space and SES are working together to sort of shape the future of satellite systems. It's been fascinating to look at the innovation that's accelerated this partnership. And I don't need to wish you luck because you guys are smashing it. So continue doing that. And what we'll do is we'll get your brother on next time as well and get some answers from him.
Yeah, I'm curious what his favorite karaoke song is. So you'll have to let me know when you do.
Sounds great. And I'll come and see you guys soon. So really appreciate that.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.